few years ago, I was driving across the desert in America when a black car started following me. Just listen to improve your British English with this true story. Hi, I'm Steve. Let's do this. Area 51. I was staying in Las Vegas, USA, a city in the middle of the desert. Las Vegas is one of those places that's completely unlike anywhere else on Earth. Everything is bigger, louder, more over the top than you can imagine. There are hotels there that are the size of small towns. Casinos that never close, that pump oxygen into the air to keep you awake. Spectacular shows with world-famous stars. An overwhelming amount of everything really, and all 24 hours a day. For the first week, I'd done what most visitors do. I'd seen a couple of shows and walked along the long central road which they call the Strip. It's lined with enormous hotels that the city is famous for. I'd eaten too much, slept not enough, and generally had a great time. But by day 7, I was getting itchy feet. I wanted to get out of the city and do something a bit different. Over the years, I'd heard people talk about a place called Area 51. It's a secret government facility that's supposed to be where Americans keep unidentified flying objects, or UFOs for short. Clearly, it wasn't that secret if I'd heard of it. There are even TV shows about it. So learning that it was only a drive away, hidden in the desert, and filled with a burning curiosity, I decided to go and have a look. First thing, the very next morning, I hired a car, jumped in, and set off on my little adventure. Within half an hour, I'd left the city behind, fading in my rear view mirror. In front of me was the open straight road, distant mountains, and a huge empty landscape stretching for miles. I drove for almost an hour without seeing another vehicle, not one. No houses, no shops, no farms, nothing. Just the road, the sky, and the sound of my tyres on the tarmac. Basically, I headed north along a road nicknamed the Extraterrestrial Highway, which is another way of saying not of this planet. And to be fair, the landscape did look like the surface of Mars. On my right-hand side, I saw a large mountain range getting ever closer, and I knew that Area 51 was hidden behind it. I must be honest, I felt giddy. As I approached, I saw a large black car parked at the side of the road. As I passed, I could clearly see the driver and the front seat passenger, both men and both wearing dark sunglasses. The car pulled out and started following me. I checked my speed, but I wasn't going too fast. I slowed down a little anyway, just in case they were plainclothes police officers. But instead of catching up with me, the car kept a steady distance, pacing me. I was starting to get a little nervous, hairs on the back of my neck standing up. I slowed down more. The other car slowed down. I sped up a fraction. Their car sped up, always keeping the same distance. Up ahead, I saw a road sign for a small settlement called Rachel, an unusual name for a town, and an unusual sign because it had an image of a spaceship on it. I kept driving. A little later, I came to a turning that led towards the mountains. Large warning signs stood there, making it very clear that visitors were not welcome. They even stated that deadly force was authorized. With my uninvited escort still behind me, I decided discretion was the better part of valor and stayed on the main road. And that's when something interesting happened. A couple of miles later, the black car fell back as it slowed down. I watched it in my mirror. It stopped, waited for a moment, then turned around and drove back the way it had come. I guess they were satisfied that I wasn't up to no good. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Just as I was relaxing and wondering what to do next, I heard a tremendous roar. High in the sky above the mountains, two fighter jets were moving at an extraordinary speed. They seemed to be chasing each other, playing a high-tech version of the children's playground game Tick. I pulled to the side of the road to watch. One would climb and roll, quickly followed by the other. Then both would dive towards the ground at breakneck speed. Eventually, they disappeared from sight behind the mountain range. Hungry and tired, I pushed on, deciding to find a place to stay for the night. Not long after, I spotted a tiny motel and pulled in. As I got out, a man appeared from the reception. He was very tall, well over 6 foot, and huge with it. He had with him the smallest dog I've ever seen in my life. The contrast between the two of them made me smile. I asked if there was a room available for the night. He replied that I could take my pick. I was the only guest. He was friendly and easygoing. I took to him straight away. He chatted as he showed me around and mentioned that the motel had a long history. A Hollywood legend had stayed there on occasion years ago. An actress called Janet Leigh. I was impressed. As he showed me to my room, I couldn't help but notice an abundance of sun loungers dotted around. More than you'd expect for such a small place. I mentioned it must be nice to sit out and catch the sun during the day. He looked at me with an expression that was somewhere between amused and patient. Those aren't for the daytime, he said. I asked them what they were for. He told me people came from all over to lie out on those lounges at night and watch the sky, expecting to see flying saucers bringing aliens. They have blankets, flasks of coffee, and they'll lie there for hours, looking up, waiting. Of course, I asked him if he'd ever seen anything unusual himself. He paused, thinking, as though deciding how much to say. I've seen things, he said finally, that I don't have an easy explanation for. He wished me good night and left me standing at my door. Famished, I found a leaflet in my room for a Mexican restaurant a little further on. I jumped into my car and went for something to eat, returning well after 10. Back in my room, I put on an extra layer because the desert at night is cold in a way that had surprised me after the heat of the day. Then I lay down on one of the sun loungers with a blanket over me and looked up at the sky. It was sensational. With no city lights to diminish them, the sky was lit up by the most stars I had ever seen in my life. The Milky Way was visible as a proper band across the sky that looked like thousands of diamonds. Combined with this, the silence was almost total, just the very occasional sound of a coyote somewhere in the distance, brought on the faint whisper of a breeze. I lay there for 2 hours, but no UFOs, no lights that moved oddly, no craft of any kind that I couldn't account for, just the stars, the cold, and the quiet. By midnight, I was properly chilly and my neck was stiff. so I decided to call it a day and went off to bed. After paying in the morning, I set off back towards Las Vegas. It was a bright, clear day. The desert looked different in the morning light, warmer and more golden, less mysterious than it had felt the night before. I switched on the radio and relaxed as the big 4x4 ate up the miles. I was heading back to Las Vegas and then hopping on a plane back to England. But if I thought my little adventure was over, I was sorely mistaken. About 40 minutes later, and still well out in the open desert, I saw them. Two silver shapes low to the ground, travelling fast in my direction, very fast, much lower than you'd normally see a plane flying, and coming in from ahead of me, getting bigger with every second. My first thought was, this is it. After watching for hours in the dark, here were two unidentified flying objects in broad daylight. Something about the speed, the low altitude, the way they seemed to skim the landscape, nothing about it looked normal. Nothing about it matched anything I had seen before. The shape of them was hard to pin down from that angle, and they were getting closer very quickly. I slowed the car. They flew directly over me, and the moment they passed, I burst out laughing. There, on each side of each craft, was the American flag. They were two American Air Force stealth bombers, some of the most advanced and distinctive looking planes ever built. They looked nothing like a conventional aircraft. They looked like something from outer space. But they were entirely of this earth, made by humans, remarkable machines, but nothing more mysterious than that. I sat there chuckling to myself. Slipping the car back into drive, I carried on back to Las Vegas. It was no more than a couple of minutes later when something else caught my eye through the windscreen. High up, much higher than the planes I had just been startled by, a silver object, round and metallic looking, sparkling in the sunlight, completely still, not moving at all, just hovering. I stopped and jumped out of the car, leaving the door open in my hurry. I stared, long enough to rule out that it wasn't any sort of plane, long enough to notice there was no vapor trail, no sound, nothing to explain what it was doing up there, or even what it was. Suddenly, as I watched, trying to make sense of what my eyes were telling me, it disappeared. You can download your totally free guide to all the vocabulary that I used in this story by clicking the link in the description. And for another video that will really improve your English, give this a click and I'll see you there. Take care.